Hello and welcome to Erate Basic Training. I am Krista Burns at the Nebraska Library Commission. I am the Erate coordinator for Nebraska libraries who are applying for Erate. Relatively new Erate coordinator, was handed over this job in the middle of 2009, and I've been gradually working my way up to it. Richard Miller, the Director of Library Development here at the Library Commission, used to be in charge of it, and now I am your contact person for anything E-rate related. I've been going around the state in January doing some E-rate training, and just also wanted to do an online session for anyone who could not attend any in-person sessions, or for any that had weather issues and couldn't get to them. I know some people didn't get to some of the ones we did for that reason, and I myself did not make it out to Scotts Bluff as I had planned to do a training out there. So hopefully some of you are here and able to get the information that you need from this session. We're going to go through, and I'm sure we have a mixture of people here that have done E-rate before. This is how it's been in my in-person sessions. Some people have done it in the past. Some people have done it every single year. How about in the questions area, if you could type in and let me know where you are. I want to know where you are in E-rate. Have you ever done it before? Have you done it every single year since it's been around? Is this your first time? Did possibly somebody in the past at your library do it and now you're trying to resurrect it? Go ahead and type in the questions section there and let me know so we know what kind of group we've got going here. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. You can just say, first time ever, we've done it. This is true. Some people have been doing it just for basic phone and maybe want to do it for other things as well. That's true. Been there, done that several years, of course, yes. Yes, and someone did mention the forms have changed. That is a big deal this year as well. We have new forms. I'm going to go through some of the changes for you. For people who have done it before, you can see some of the new things. If you've never done it in the past, then you'll just learn the way it is now. Yes. And having done it before but don't even understand why they're doing it, I've had that comment as well from other librarians in the state. They do it, they go through the steps, someone just told them here's what you do, step 1, 2, 3, go through the process, but they don't really know why they're doing it or how the background. We'll definitely get into that so you kind of understand that better. Never done it yourself, but the library used to. This is something that's happened in the past too. Somebody in the past has done it, but nobody, and then a new person came along and didn't keep up with it. So now another new person doesn't have a clue where to get started. That's very common too. Looks like we've got a mixture of people just like I've had in my in-persons. First timers, people have been doing it forever. People need to know about the new changes. People just want to know more about it in general to better understand what they're doing and why. And that is what we will get into today. So for those of you who've done it before, you're going to probably hear some things you already know, get a refresher on the basics of E-rate. But it doesn't hurt to hear it again, and it'll be good for the people who are brand new to this as well. So first of all, what is this E-rate that we're talking about? E-rate is a federal program that was created in 1996 to help schools, libraries, and healthcare facilities and low-income people in low-income areas be able to afford their phone and internet access. That's the basic things. There's a lot of things you can apply for E-rate for, but those are the basics. There's this universal service fee that you may see on your phone bills. If you look at the itemized phone bills that you get, that is where the money comes to create the funding for the program. As I said, it was created in 1996 by the Telecommunications Act, and providers were ordered via that act to supply their services to schools, libraries, healthcare facilities at discounted rates. They didn't tell them what the rate should be or how to do it. In the act, they directed the FCC to create the rules for this, to figure out how is this program going to work, how are all of these institutions, the schools and libraries and healthcare facilities going to get this discount and be able to afford their resources. They didn't, they wanted to help out since it is very important, and some places were having trouble just being able to afford the basics, and they thought it would be a good idea for use some federal money to help people. Institutions be able to afford it. Now, as I said, the FCC is the one who oversees the E-rate program. There is a company that was created, a nonprofit called the Universal Service Administrative Company, who actually administers the E-rate program for schools and libraries and other programs, the one for the healthcare and the low income, those kind of things. And the acronym for that is USAC. You might hear me mention that sometimes. But more often, I'll be talking about the Schools and Libraries Division, which is the specific area of USAC that handles just schools and libraries, not the healthcare, not any of the other things. They were put together into one division. So the SLD is what I'll talk about most often when I'm referring to things and that the E-rate people do, or who's in charge of these things and who you contact for information. That is the division of that Universal Service Administrative Company that's specific for you guys. Now, as I said, the FCC sets the rules and policies, and they issue orders on an irregular basis to change any of these policies. And this is something new that has happened this year. The 6th order was released in the fall. Now, this E-rate has been around since 1996, and this is only the 6th time they've made major changes to the whole program. So it's not very often that this happens. It was released in September, and then the FCC had to look at the order, see if they agreed with the changes and the new forms, and approve it all, and that became effective on January 3rd. It was published in the Federal Register. That's the official way that these things are published in December, and that made the effective date January. Now, this is not the normal time frame for E-rate. Normally, you would be starting the process that we're talking about, I'll be getting into today. You'd normally be starting this process in the fall, in October, November. But because of this new report, an order that was done, and then waiting on the FCC to approve it and allow, so we knew what the new rules would be, everything has been bumped. And so now the main time of doing things is now January through March of this year. So for future reference, for future years, this is not when this normally would be happening. Normally I would be actually doing this training in the fall, in October, November, which would have avoided all of those weather issues that all of us had last month. So hopefully this won't happen very often. Like I said, it doesn't happen very often, but this is just special for this year. After the FCC approves them, then the SLD figures out what the procedures will be for enacting the new rules and using them. So it's a back and forth between the USAC and the FCC deciding how it all gets run, with USAC actually being the one who I am in contact with, who does my training, who you can go to for help and resources. Now, E-rate is done on a funding year that runs from July 1st through June 30th. So whenever you're applying for E-rate, you're saying, I want to get an E-rate discount that goes from July through June, that is for those years, those months. So for the upcoming year that you're right now going to be applying for, it's called Funding Year 2011, going July 2011 through June 2012. Officially, the commitments are $2.25 billion is allotted to the E-rate program. And if there are any unused funds in a previous year, they can be rolled over. It happens. Sometimes libraries and schools and whoever do not get all their forms done. They don't collect their monies, and there's extra to roll over. Starting new with the 2010 year, which is the previous funding year, that they are still putting out funding money out to libraries, they are now increasing the cap based on inflation. Anything in this presentation you see in green, that's new stuff from the new order. So they realize that inflation does affect libraries and schools, and so now they will look at what the inflation rate is, and if it is higher, they will bump up the cap for how much money can be distributed out. So for the 2010 funding year, as I said, which is the previous year, that they're still giving out money for, it's up to $2.27 billion, up from $2.25. And then for 2011, it will be bumped up again, if needed, if the inflation rate goes up. Now, if inflation goes down, it will not be decreased. That's nice, though. It'll never go below that $2.25 billion that was the original. Now, who can apply for E-rate? As I've already been mentioning, libraries and schools can apply for it. You can also be in a consortium if there's a group of schools that are together or a group of libraries. We don't really have anything like that here in Nebraska, so that doesn't apply to us. We pretty much have our single libraries. Omaha and Lincoln have various branches that can apply all together, but that's really about it. The eligibility for libraries is a library must be eligible to receive LSTA funds in some way from however the state gives out these funds. Now here in Nebraska, we have our own rules for distributing LSTA funds for grants, and that means a library has to be an accredited library in Nebraska. So that is just a special Nebraska rule. That's not an E-rate rule. The eligible for LSTA funds part is an E-rate rule, and then each state is allowed to determine and decide on their own how they decide to distribute their funds, the LSTA funds, and if they have their own restrictions or rules about it. And here in Nebraska we do, and it's that being accredited bit. That is something if you're not already accredited, you can work with library development here. That's once again Richard Miller, and they can get you up to speed on that so that you could then be eligible for E-rate. If you're already just accredited and you've been keeping up with that for years, then you're all good. Now, what kind of discounts can you get? You can get anywhere up to 90% of your costs on your telephone or internet access reduce. So 20% is the lowest, 90% is the highest. So you can apply for a discount on your phone, on your internet, or on both if you want to. And the discount depends on, they do it based on poverty level, and that's their idea, and they do it based on how many students in your school district that your library is in are eligible for the National School Lunch Program. Now, this is something you have to be careful about, that this is the number of students eligible, not the ones that are actually receiving it. There will be more students in your district that are eligible and that don't actually apply and get the school lunch program. So you need to make sure you're doing the eligible numbers. And this is only students that are in kindergarten through 12th grade, does not include pre-kindergarten, which you may see that sometimes in the statistics, the numbers that you pull up. And this number is done in combination with whether your library is in an urban or rural location in the state. Most libraries in Nebraska are rural, obviously. We've got only very few urban ones designated. So you take those two numbers and that will let you know what your discount is, whether it is from that 20 to 90% range. Now we have resources that you can use to look up these numbers. Apparently in the past, getting your school lunch numbers was not easy. I've heard from, as I've been doing training, the Nebraska Department of Education is the one that collects these numbers, and they post them on their website. So they have a spreadsheet up there that you can go and look at the numbers, and look up your school district, the schools in your district, and figure out how many students are in the district who are enrolled in the school, and then how many students are eligible for the school lunch program, and then divide the enrolled by the number eligible, and you'll get your percentage that are eligible for the lunch program. There's also a website on the USAC, a web page on the USAC website that tells you whether your county is urban or rural, so you can find that out. And then they have a little matrix, a chart that you use to figure out where your discount falls. As far as doing the school lunch data, when you look at the spreadsheet, you will see possibly multiple schools in your district, and you'll have to use the numbers from all of those different schools and total them up together to get your full discount. There's a little instruction and example part also on the USAC website that shows you an example of how that's done. That you add up the enrolled, add up the eligibles, divide them, and then you get your percentage for all of the schools that are part of your school district. For whatever reason, the Department of Education reports the numbers by school, individual school, not by district. So you have to do that math of adding them up yourself. And all these links that are in here, don't worry about trying to scribble all these links down. They're linked from our website, and you'll have this PowerPoint presentation yourself as well that you can use to access them. But they're just here so you can see. Now here is the matrix of what your discount you could get. So you figure out what percent of the students who are enrolled in your school district are eligible for the school lunch program, and then you see if you're urban or rural, and you can see how much of a discount you could possibly get. Now this would be the first step I recommend that libraries do if they've never done E-rate before, to decide, is it even worth it to go through the process. It can be a long process. There's multiple forms, something you keep up with throughout the year. So you really need to see, is it worth my time and energy and effort to go through and do this? Most libraries in Nebraska fall within the 60 to 80% discount. So for most libraries in our state, it's probably pretty worthwhile. You can get 60% off your phone bill, or up to 80% off your phone bill. We have a few that have 90%, are in the 90, and we have a few that are lower, but they still do it anyways. So this would be the first step to even decide if it's worth it to go through the E-rate process. See how much money you could possibly save. And this savings that you'd have would be for anything that you apply for E-rate, whether it's your phone bill, your internet access, anything else that you might be doing. So there's just one discount for all the different things that are offered. Anybody have any questions at this point about figuring out this discount and the basics of it? Okay. Now, what can you get an E-rate discount on? What is E-rateable, for example? Every year, the FCC publishes what they call their eligible services list, and this is a list of all the different services, products, resources that you can get discount on your bills. It's about 50 some odd pages long, so I did not send that to you or include that, but there is a link on the website where you can go to get the PDF of it for your resources. And this is what you're going to need to look at to see if you have something that you can get a discount on. Some of the basic stuff is pretty simple, your telephone bills, your internet access, but there's lots of other extra things that you could also get discounts on. And it's a good idea to take a look at the list every year because they do add things and move and delete things or change things that are available. So this is your Bible for what you can get. And there's a new list every year. So when you do go to this URL, you will see the 2007 list, and I think they have the 2010 and 2009 list also still up there as well. The reason they still have those 3 years up there is there are still people now working on submitting forms and getting their discount from the 2009 funding year. It can, as I said, if you go on the regular process, you do it throughout the same funding year, but sometimes things can be delayed. Sometimes libraries do an appeal for getting denied funding. Sometimes the SLD needs to ask for more information from either a library or their service provider. So the process can be dragged out sometimes for some libraries. So there are still libraries working on their 2009 E-rate discounts. You may be, when you're doing E-rate, will be working on multiple years at the same time, applying for next year's, getting the discount from last year's, possibly doing older stuff because things have just gotten taken longer. So you may be doing multiple years at the same time as well. Just make sure when you're looking at the eligible services list, you're looking at the right one for the year that you're currently trying to work on. Right now, we're applying for 2011, so it would be the 2011 funding year. Now, what kind of things are on this list? Everything on the list is divided into two groups, Priority 1 and Priority 2. Now, Priority 1 are your basic services, telecommunications, your phone bill, your local, your long distance, and internet access, your monthly internet bill. Priority 1 services, as you can see here, it says they are funded first. This means that they will receive requests for people who want to get their phone bill, their internet access, and maybe other things, and they will look at the Priority 1 things, which are their basic service, and give out all the money they can there. Then, if there's money left over, they will go to what they call their Priority 2 services and give out leftover money to those. And these are funded beginning with who have the highest percent discount available. So going back to that discount matrix, generally what you'll hear when they do decide to go back to the to funding the Priority 2, they'll say we're funding Priority 2 only at 85% and above, or 80% and above. So only if your discount is 80% and over would they even look at your Priority 2 request. If your discount level is 60 or 70%, it doesn't even get looked at. It doesn't hurt to apply for Priority 2, and we'll get into what's in that area in a second, because you never know. It depends on how much money is left over, how far down in the discounts they go to try and look for Priority 2. I've heard they've gone down into the 70% level sometimes. Doesn't happen often, but it can. So it doesn't hurt to just fill out the form, see what happens if that is something that you are paying for that you could get a discount on. Now, as far as Priority 1, what we're talking about is your local and long-distance phone bills. If instead of like your landlines, you have cell phone service, so if it's a cell phone bill with text messaging, web browsing, those kind of things on your phone bill. If you'd use voice over IP for phone, I know for some people at home are using things like Vonage, which uses the internet to connect. You can apply for that. Any taxes or fees that go along with these, and if you needed to have these kind of things installed or configured, the cost for that would also be covered under Priority 1 telecommunications services. And internet access. We have a question. We have the basic phone service, but wondered about changing to unlimited calls with all the bells and whistles. Does this matter? No, Wanda, that wouldn't matter. That's just what you've chosen as your account what you want, and if that's going to make it better for you to be able to serve your patrons and answer your phone, whatever you choose as your service plan doesn't matter to E-Rate. Just the fact that you have a phone and a phone bill coming in is always the most they look at. And if you look at the actual eligible services list, it does not even talk about what kind of plan you have, because yeah, I know with cell phone companies there's so many different ones you can have. It doesn't care. It's just the fact that you have a phone plan and you have a phone bill that you're paying is all that matters. We would have to change it before we fill out this form. Yes, you'd because you'd have to know ahead of, well, actually no, you would not have to change it beforehand, because once I get into the filling out the forms, you'll see what I mean. You're actually going to be requesting putting out there and saying what kind of service you want. So you would be able to change it after you start the process. And when I get into the different forms that you fill out, you'll see what I mean by that. You can do it now if you want to. That's fine. You just don't have to, no. So that's different kind of phone connections you can have. Now for internet access, obviously your monthly internet bill you can get a discount on. If you have an email service that you pay for, web hosting that you pay for, all of that can be considered part of internet access as well, and you can apply for it under Priority 1 for services, the first ones that are funded. Now the difference between that telecommunications service and telecommunications I'll get to in a second. But I wanted to first talk about Priority 2 just to let you know about those services. And these are things, as you see here, they call internal connections or basic maintenance of these internal connections. Internal connections would be the wiring in that if you had to have something installed in the library, support for your equipment and cabling on site that transports information to the rooms of the library. Doesn't include end-user components such as the computers themselves. So it's just any equipment that gets the internet to the computers or gets the phone to. So there's some sort of basic monthly thing that you have to pay for that. From basic maintenance, that would be if you have on a plan for repair and upkeep of that equipment and the wiring, cable maintenance, the wiring maintenance, and basic technical support if you pay for that as a service from either your phone or your internet company or from someone else out there who does it for you. That would be your basic maintenance that you could get E-Rate Fund discount for as well. So you've got your basic phone and internet as Priority 1, and then all the extra stuff that kind of helps run the phone and the internet lines is generally Priority 2. Like I said, the eligible services list really details it out in individual exactly what they're talking about, so that would be the best place to look to really get the down and dirty details about it if you need to. But that's the basics, the two different priorities you can get. Now you notice here we've got some stuff in green, a new level under Priority 1 called telecommunications rather than telecommunications service. Telecommunications service is what they previously just had as your Priority 1. You had telecommunications service, which was your phone, basically, and your internet access. Now they've broken out that you can have an eligible telecommunications carrier and what they call a non-telecommunications carrier as your provider for your phone service or your internet connection. And the reason they have this difference is because they're now allowing libraries and schools, whoever, to apply for an E-Rate discount on something called dark fiber. Dark fiber is fiber lines when fiber optic lines were first installed and put in underground or wherever. They put in more than what they needed to use at the time, knowing that there would be an increase in need and use in the future. So there is a lot of these connections out there that are not being used by anybody yet. And they call dark. They haven't been lit up and turned on and used. In the past, that was not something that libraries could get an E-Rate discount on. Now, starting with 2011, you can contact some company that may have this fiber just sitting around there not being used and ask to have the library be able to use it, have it turned on, then use that, and then whatever the cost is for that particular way of connecting to your internet would be what you could get your E-Rate discount on. From what I've heard in my training sessions around the state, this does not seem to be very common or well known about from libraries in Nebraska. It may be just that I do know that I've heard it is very expensive to go through dark fiber, so I'm sure some places have just never even bothered to investigate it because of the costs. In some places, though, they said we don't think we even have that, and that may be true. It just may not even apply in your area. It's may not be even available. Now, what is good about it is it may be a faster speed than what you're currently getting for your internet. So that may be something to consider. Investigate it, contact some local companies, see if they do even offer this. And with your E-rate discount, it might now become affordable for you. Some libraries may have decided not to do it, as I said, because of the cost, but now that it is eligible for the E-rate discount, that might make a difference. So this is just some basic information about it that you just can connect into it, have it turned on immediately. Any sort of equipment is not eligible. If you have maintenance or installation, it is eligible. So any construction work that has to be done to get you connected is eligible for an E-rate discount. Now this is where the telecommunications provider and those two different levels comes into play. Now that this is available, there are other companies that can provide you internet access now that are not your traditional ISP like Time Warner or whatever. Phone companies, there may be local regional networks that provide this. Private companies now may have the stuff that these lines that they had installed, and now they can lease it out to you as a library to get you a better connection. So when you start applying for E-rate, you may start hearing from some other new companies that are offering this if it's something that you say you want to get into. You can apply for it in both the telecommunications and internet access categories, and then that will catch any kind of providers that may be offering it, your basic, your traditional telephone and internet providers, and any of these new companies that now can offer you a connection. So like I said, from what I've heard in my trainings, it's not very common, but if it does pop up and you start hearing about it, you now know that you can get it, and this is some of your basic information. If you need to know more about it, definitely, contact me and we can talk more about what it is, should you do it, should you not. What it really comes down to is probably a money issue. Can you afford it even with the discount? But that is just something brand new with E-rate for this funding year 2011. So that's what you can apply for: your basic phone, your basic internet, and then your behind-the-scenes services. Now, as far as applying for E-rate, as I said, this is an ongoing process that you do throughout the year, and there are 4 basic forms that you use. Depending on how you do step 4, you as a library may be only submitting the first 3 forms, and we'll get to that. The forms are all available online. So you can fill them out online on the website, submit them all electronically online. They are also still all available in paper as well. So if you feel, I know I've got some libraries that just feel more comfortable doing the paper no matter what, you can still print them out, fill them out in paper, and mail them in. The link there on the second bullet is where you can go to complete them online, and it also does have a link back to the where you can get the paper copies of them as well. Now, the first form you have, I'm just going to go through this very quickly here because then I'm going into the exact details of each form later on. Form 470 is where you start off the process. This is where you say, I want to get some service that is E-rateable. This is where you are announcing to the world, I am wanting to get phone service, internet service, and I want to get an E-rate discount on it. That is something that some libraries did last fall already. Some libraries are doing it for the first time right now. And that's fine. There's a long, broad period of time when you can do that 470, your very first form, saying, I want to start the E-rate process for this upcoming funding year. After you do that, you'll decide who you want to serve as your service provider for either phone or internet, and you submit a Form 471 letting the SLD, the E-rate people, know that you have picked who's going to be your provider and how much it's going to cost and what the discount will be so they can calculate how much money they can give you. They'll let you know if they approve it or not, and you'll do a Form 46, the third form, which is not until later in the year, that lets them know, okay, it started, I'm receiving the service, it's all good, the provider has started giving me my phone or my internet, and we are now ready to get my bills discounted. And that's the step 4, where you can see there's 2 different forms there, and you can choose how you want to get receive your discount. And we'll get into the difference between those 2 forms in a few slides here. So that's where you say, I've paid my bills, it's all been done, and now give me my discounted money. For all of these forms that you're filling out, you may have extra documentation that you've collected, phone bills that tell you how much you're paying. If service providers have contacted you and sent you a bid on saying, we'll offer you this service at this amount of money, all of that, anything that's paperwork related in all of these forms, you need to keep for 5 years after the last date of service. So the last date of service for a funding year would be that June 30th date. So go back 5 years, and you just have to make sure you save everything. This is because the SLD can come back and ask you about older requests, older E-rate request you may have put in. They can do an audit, just checking up on things, making sure things got done correctly. So you need to make sure you keep everything related to it for at least 5 years. You can have folders, you can have files. I have binders here that we use at the commission. And they can be in electronic or paper. You can print out everything and have them in paper if that's what you're comfortable with, or you can have everything scanned and saved somewhere on your servers electronically. That is perfectly acceptable as well. They just need to be able, you just need to be able to give them anything they may ask for that was related to you completing any of these forms. And as we get into the details of what you do for each of these forms, you'll see the kind of things that you might have that they might want to look at. Now, this is our timeline of everything that can happen in E-rate throughout the year. We also have this timeline available on our website in more generic. This one here in the PowerPoint presentation specifically has dates that apply to this current upcoming funding year. The one on the website is a generic one that you can use for all future years, just as a basic overview of how things are, the timing of when things might happen. So our funding year, as I already talked about, is July through June, July 1st through June 30th. The current one you're applying for is the 2011 funding year. The first form you fill out, as I said, is a 470. The 471 is your second form, and this is something you may have heard. As far as the deadlines for when these things are due, they aren't actually known when you do your first form, the 470. The 471 is when they announce a deadline for it, and then that helps you determine the deadlines and timing for everything else in the process. There's a limited amount of time during which you can submit a 471. It's about 73, 75 days, and they announce it every year, and every year is different. Normally, it falls around November through February, December through January, February. This year, it's been bumped, like I said, because of all the new rules, the new forms, so it actually just opened in January. The window for the 471 opened on January 11th, and it closes on March 24th. So the deadlines to submit that second form, the one telling the SLD who you've chosen as your service provider, how much it's going to cost, what your discount is, that is due on March 24th. Then that form now lets you know when the deadline is for the 470, the first form, because when you submit your 470, you're announcing to the world, as I said, I want this service, and you're opening up a bidding period officially for a time frame for when service providers, if they want to, can contact you to offer you services. You have to have that form up for at least 28 days. You have to have an open, a good competitive bidding time available for these providers, and that's 28 days is what they specify. So we know, now that we know when the 471 is due, March 24th, we back up 28 days, and we know the latest you can possibly submit a 470 and still let them have that 28 days is February 24th. So for this funding year, you've got until February 24th to start the process. After you submit that form 470, you'll get a letter called a receipt acknowledgement letter that will tell you how long that 28-day period actually is. It'll give you your official posting date and your official date when you can finally start submitting your 471. So don't worry about trying to figure out the date yourself, how long that 20 days is. They'll send you a letter letting you know that. You hold on to that letter. It tells you when you can do your 471. You do that. Every time you do a form, you'll notice here, you get something back from the SLD. They send a notification letter, an acknowledgement letter, something letting you know they got your form, they got what you sent in, and here's what we say that you submitted, you filled this out, what information you put on it. After you do your 471, you get a receipt notification letter saying, yep, we got that one too. And then it goes into being reviewed. After the 471, they have a part of the SLD called their Program Integrity Assurance Department, PIA, who review all the applications. They look at them all, make sure everything is correct, make sure everything is eligible and legal. And with all these applications they get, it can take a long time, obviously. And then eventually, if they may ask you, this is where they may ask you for more information, copies of something, clarification on something. You may hear from them, you may never hear a peep until they send you the funding commitment decision letter. That's the next thing you would get from them, saying, okay, we've reviewed your application, it's all good, and now here is how much you are being given. You can appeal that if you think the funding wasn't enough or if something got denied. There is a process to do that if you want to. Or you just say, great, we're getting some money, we're happy. After you get that funding commitment decision letter, you then do your 486. And this is the form that for some reason some libraries forget to do. They submit their first form saying, yes, we want to participate in Erate, the 470. They do the 471, telling the SLD, here's who we've picked and how much our discount should be. But then they never go along, they forget for some reason the 486 where they're telling them that service has actually started. It's kind of this weird in-between form, which is, well, we've already told you who we want, but you've got to actually confirm that you've started receiving service, that everything's good, you're getting the discount from the provider, they're providing you with your phone or internet just like you're supposed to. You do have 120 days from when you get that funding commitment decision letter to submit your 486. So you got a pretty good length of time, either from whenever you get that letter or from the service start date. So you have a good long time period to get that in, but for some reason a lot of libraries forget that in the past. I do have access to a database where I can look up this information and see who has submitted and who hasn't. So I do try and remind you guys if I notice you haven't submitted something that you've got to do the next form. So hopefully, if we won't have as many libraries having this problem anymore. Now that I can help nag you in a good way to get your forms in. After you've done the 486, then you decide how you want to receive your discount. You have an option. You can either receive a bill from your service provider that already has a discount on it, or you can get a reimbursement after the fact, where you pay your bill in full and then get sent a check afterwards giving you back the discounted money. That's your choice there, doing a discount on your bill or reimbursement. You would work with your service providers to decide which way works best for them and for you. You'd have to decide based on also what your library, how you need to get your money or want to get your money. Some service providers have a preference as well, so that would also be something you'd have to work with them on. If you're going to be receiving a discount on your bill, the service provider would submit the form 474 to the SLD saying, we are sending this library a discounted bill, so please give us the money to make up for that. If you want to pay your bill in full and get a reimbursement check afterwards, you as a library would do the 472. So this is where that difference is. I said there's the 4 forms, but depending on how you pick how you want your money, you may only submit the first 3. If you're getting a discount on the bill and the service provider is submitting the form, they do it. You don't have to do anything. If you want the reimbursement, you do that form, and then you would be doing 4 forms because you're also doing that 472. It's just going to depend on which way you prefer it and which way you work it out with your service provider. Any questions about this? This is a basic timeline, as I said, and I'm going to get into some of the details of filling out these forms, the first 2 forms, the 470 and the 471 in this session, because those are the 2 forms you can do right now. But any questions about this basic timeline for now? No? Okay. Now, as I said, there are letters that you get in response to everything that you submit. Every form you send to them, they'll send you something back. Oh, question, yes, is the 472 the BEAR form? Yes, these do have acronyms for them. The forms that you submit. So you may have heard people talk about BEAR and possibly SPY. Yes, BEAR, because it is called the Billed Entity Applicant Reimbursement. That's the acronym for it. That's the 472. The service provider one that the service provider would submit is called a Service Provider Invoice form, and that's called a SPI, S-P-I. So you may have heard that acronym before in other trainings that Richard may have done. So every time as I said, every time you send them a form, they send you a letter confirmation back, either the receipt that they received the 470, the receipt notification that they received the 471, your funding commitment decision letter, and what they do is they color code them for each year. so that you can keep track of which letters you're getting. Like I said, you're going to be doing multiple years at the same time. You can keep track of which letters you're getting in are for which year. So for 2011, the upcoming one, if you start getting letters for that, it will be on blue paper that it comes from them. Now, as I said, you can submit all of your forms online. Every single one of those 4 forms that I listed can be done online, but they will always send you their receipts and their letters in through regular U.S. mail. They just still do it that way to get you your response back. So you'll have things in blue. Anybody did it in 2010, all your paper from them is in pink. Before that, it was canary, and they rotate the 3 colors: yellow, pink, blue, yellow, pink, blue. Now, if there's anyone here who's ever done it way back in the beginning when they first started the program in '96, for the first couple of years, they did not do it in color. Everything was just on white paper. So you may remember older forms that were done that way. They hadn't realized that it would be useful to put it in color like this. There's also one other thing that you may get from them that they don't put on colored paper. They send you a report of the money that has been designated for you every quarter. There's a quarterly report. That always comes on white paper. I'm not sure why that one doesn't get a color, but that will come on a regular white piece of paper from them instead of in the colored paper, the pink or the blue or the yellow. So this is a good way to keep track of everything. Like I said, here at the Commission, I have binders I keep track because the Commission does apply for E-rate, and there's a whole section that everything's in pink from last year and yellow from the year before, and now I'm starting to get blue. I'll start getting blue ones for the upcoming year. It's just a good way of them to try and help keep you organized. So I want to briefly talk about something related to E-rate technology planning. Some of you may have heard about that you have to do a technology plan to apply for E-rate, and this is true up to a point. In the past, if you wanted to apply for anything beyond your phone, your telephone, your long distance, and your local, you had to create a technology plan. This is an issue for some libraries. It takes some time to figure out, and you can see here the different elements have to be part of the plan. Technology plan is basically, the purpose of that is to make sure that you know you're keeping track of your technology and thinking what you're going to do in the future and planning it out so you know what's going to happen. So you used to have to do this if you wanted to apply for anything beyond phone. Now they've changed it that it's only if you want to apply for Priority 2 services. So now if you want to apply for internet access, you do not have to have a technology plan. I know when I did some of my online trainings, I got some cheers and claps for that it can take some work. Every year, some libraries do it once a year. You can do it every other year, every 3 years, but it can be a long process. So there is a difference that you do not have to have it if you want to do your basic phone and now your basic internet. However, if you did do this in the past, you do still have to keep your technology plan from before, because like I said, that 5 years that you have to keep everything for, you have to keep hold of everything, and your technology plan that you may have written for previous applications, if you did apply for internet, still needs to be held on to. They also, to make it easier for anybody who may be doing technology plan, remove the criteria for having a budget included. This is actually probably the easiest part of a tech plan. Just photocopy and attach a copy of your budget. This is where they would make sure you knew you had enough money to pay for everything, not just the discounted things you're getting through E-rate. There are now 4 criteria for a plan. You have goals for how you're going to use the technology, professional development, how your staff is going to be kept trained and up to speed on the technologies that you have, assessing the technology you have, the hardware, the software, what needs to be updated, what computer's falling apart, dying, what printer needs to be replaced, that kind of thing, and evaluating the plan itself, making sure that you regularly take a look at it and make sure it's still applicable and still accurate, and maybe it needs to cover new services and technologies that are coming out. If you do need to write one, we do have information. The E-rate website has a URL where they have specific information about technology planning, and we have a planning worksheet here on our Commission website, which is really nice to use. It has questions and answers type thing where you can we ask a question, we give you some examples, and you just kind of fill in the blanks, and you can use that to serve as your technology plan. And like I said, you do need to keep that, if you do have one, for that same 5-year time period as everything else. Now, as far as writing one, if you do need to do one, you have to have something written before you submit your 470. That's the first form in the process. But it does not have to be approved or finalized by the 470. Just have something that you've started. What happens with this plan is you write it and then you send it to me here at the Commission, and I am the one who is it says here, the USAC Certified Technology Plan Approver here in Nebraska. That's me. So I'm the person that can officially sign off and approve your plan. I send you a letter that confirms, yes, it does meet all the criteria for E-rate purposes. You have time between the filing of the 470 and the filing of your 486 to tweak your plan. If I decide you need to make changes, if something needs to be updated, whatever, it just needs to be approved before you do that 486. So you just start writing it before the 470. Make sure you have somewhere on it that says first created whatever date, and that's before you've submitted that first form. And then you can go back and forth with me on updating it and working on it if you want to. And then I approve it, and then you're good to do your 486. As I said, now it's only needed if you're going to be going down to applying for those priority 2 services, the internal connections, the basic maintenance type things. That's the only thing that you now need to have a technology plan for. So for a lot of people that maybe did it in the past, you don't need to anymore. If for people doing it new, you'll not need to do it at all if you're only applying for those priority 1, your basic phone and your basic internet access. But we do still have information about it. It is a good idea to have one anyways, to have something that you're keeping track of how you're dealing with the technology in your library, the changes that happen. For some libraries, it was already part of their basic strategic plan for the library, their mission, so it was already in there somewhere. It's always a good thing to have it anyways, to be keeping up with this kind of thing. Maybe even if you don't need to send it to me for approval for any E-rate purposes, still might be a good idea to look at that technology planning worksheet on the Commission website and just use it anyways as a guide for just keeping track of this stuff at your library anyways. Technology planning is a good idea in general. It's just no longer required for some of the services you'll be applying for an E-rate discount for. Any questions about that? Okay, related to technology planning, because it is for internal connections, is SIPA. This is the Children's Internet Protection Act, which is basically dealing with filtering, which I know is a issue for some libraries. Some libraries do not want to filter anything in their computers in their library for philosophical issues. I know some libraries say, well, we just do not want to censor anything. We'll deal with that on a case-by-case basis as the people are using our computers, and that's fine. If you do not want to comply with SIPA, then you just are not going to be able to apply for an E-rate discount on your internet access. That's that second item under priority 1, or your internal connections. That's priority 2. You do need to be complying with SIPA if you want to get an E-rate discount on those 2 things. You do not need to be complying with SIPA to get an E-rate discount on your telephone. Anything that's under your long distance, your local telephone service, anything that's phone related, your cell phones. There's no filtering of those. So this Children's Internet Protection Act has nothing to do with that. I have heard some libraries who had thought they couldn't apply for E-rate in general because they didn't comply with SIPA, and that is not true. You cannot apply for E-rate for internet access and internal connections unless you comply with SIPA. You can still apply for telephone, the telecommunications services part, and not have to be complying with this. So there is that difference. Some libraries, as I said, don't want to filter anything or censor anything, so they just don't do it, and that's fine. However, I do think some people don't have some misconceptions about how serious SIPA has to be. And what's nice about it is it is not written very strictly. It does not say you must filter this, 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 and you must use these products to do it. It is actually pretty broad. It says you must have a technology protection measure in effect, some sort of filtering procedure, whether it's a product you purchased, something on CD that you install on the computers, whether you do it at your server level, you can do it at your network level, just something that you can use to filter out the things that SIPA requires. And what it specifically mentions, and I'm looking for my page here on that. Yeah, that things that are obviously illegal, like images of child pornography, that is illegal anyways, so it shouldn't be out there at all. And then things that are your local decision level. Visual depictions that are obscene, that's your local decision where what you think, and things that are harmful to minors, also very broad and vague. So you can decide at your local level how specific that needs to be. What's also interesting that's in SIPA that I think some people don't know is it also specifies there has to be a way to turn off the filter if someone asks. If an adult asks and said, I need to do research, for example, on breast cancer, and this filter is blocking the word breast, you have to have something. SIPA requires some way to easily turn off that filter so that person can do the research they want to. Also, they do not have to tell you what they want to do research on. They may, but they just, if an adult comes to you and say, I would like the filter turned off on this computer, you go and do it. Of course, you might keep an eye on that they're not doing anything illegal. That's a whole separate issue from SIPA. But it has to have that ability to be turned off as well, so that you're not actually censoring just blindly everyone who might want to use a computer. So something to think about. You also have to have an internet safety plan in place, which you may already have some sort of plan and procedures and policy on how the internet gets used at your library, what computers minors can use or not, if there's any, who's keeping an eye on these things, who can use your computers, who can't, how you handle privacy of people who are logging into their services on your computers. So some sort of plan that you may already have possibly in place as a policy at your library. And then at some point you had to have a public notice or meeting hearing, letting your community know we are complying now with this Children's Internet Protection Act, and here's how we're doing it, and if you want to, here's an open meeting where you can come and talk about it. Now, it doesn't have to be a specific meeting just for that purpose. It can be an agenda item on your monthly board meeting, just once that you let people come and talk about it. So up to you how you would do that. So those are the three main things that SIPA requires. There's lots more information about that on the SLD website, and I've got you the URL here for that so you can see the details of it. But it is something that if you do want to get an internet discount on your E-rate discount on your internet access or your internet connections, you would have to comply with this. You would not have to if you were just doing it for telephone. Just wanted to make it clear. So any questions, concerns, whatever about this, about SIPA and internet and filtering? We do have some information and things on our commission website about it. We've done some, if anyone watches our NCompass Live weekly webinars that we do here at the commission, there's been some sessions on filtering and security on your computers that you might find useful for some information about this. So feel free to go there and get more information about filtering in general. No questions yet? Okay. What I'm going to go on to now is actually applying and completing the first two forms in the E-rate process, the 470 and the 471. Those are the only two that you can be doing right at the moment for the upcoming year. We will have future sessions on this, trainings on doing the other forms. We get to the 486 when it's time to do those. But today we're going to get into, as I said, just doing the first two forms. As I said, you can apply and submit all these forms online. And this is the URL for this is the main URL for the USAC website, and specifically the Schools and Libraries Division section of that website. So www.usac.org/SL for schools and libraries. Their website has lots of great resources. A lot of my links that you'll see in this presentation, I'll go to things on their website. Some things are on our website, but there's also resources on here, and this is a site for you to go through and look for things as you want to. Any help you need, you can find on here. You can see there on the screen they have a countdown of the window being open for submitting the 471. That's actually a live countdown that changes and counts down to 42, 41, 40, 39 if you go there and actually look at it live. This is just a screenshot at the time I caught it. And over on the left there, you see I've got a big red arrow to where the link is to click on to apply online to submit your forms. Now, As I said, they are still available in paper as well. This is the page you'll get to when you click on that Apply Online link. And the first two sections there in the pink, the 470 and the 471, as I said, that's what I'm going to talk about today. And there's all the links to apply to submit those. There is an interview version of the forms, as you can see, and a link to a button to just create them. Interview goes more of a question and answer type thing, taking you through submitting the form. The create buttons just take you and ask you, just have you fill in the blanks. Up to you which way you want to do it. I have some libraries who said they prefer the interview, they like it better. Some just go and do the create one. Try them both and see what you think. You can see also they all have a continue incomplete option. So all of these forms, if you start working on one and then you get interrupted, or you realize you need more information, or it has an error that you can't figure out what the heck it's talking about, you can always stop and it saves your progress and you can go back to it. So that's a good thing too. You do not have to be ready to complete your entire form when you go in to do it. You can go back to it. There are some tips up here about using the form. As you can see, it says to use Internet Explorer. It does work on Macs as well using Netscape. Other browsers may cause errors, it says. I have had some people say they've used other browsers, however, perfectly successfully, used Firefox, for example. But they don't guarantee that everything will work. So if you are having issues with filling one out and you're not using IE, Internet Explorer, I'd recommend just switch over to Internet Explorer and use that. And that may solve any problems or issues you might be having with your form. It may just be the browser. They only guarantee that it will work with that one. If you do have pop-up blocker on your browser, make sure that's turned off, or at least turned off for this USAC website, because they do have pop-ups that will come up and remind you of things or give you warnings or instructions on how to complete the items on that page. Really useful pop-ups telling you things. So make sure that that's turned off. If you don't have it turned off by default, usually the first time a pop-up tries to come up, a little warning will come up at the top of your browser saying pop-up was blocked. Click here to turn that off. And I've also shown you here too that there is a link to the required forms page right above where you apply, complete these online, where there are instructions for completing all of these forms and PDFs of the forms themselves as well if you want to submit them in paper. The instructions are also in PDF form. So if you want to have those instructions next to you while you're completing the online version, go there, click on that link, and you can print out the instructions for whichever form you're doing. Also, you can print out the actual print copy of the form itself and have it as kind of a cheat sheet. I know some people, I do that. I look at the print one ahead of time and decide what things do I need, what information do I need ahead of time, and use that and then go in and actually submit it online. As I said earlier, they do say that submitting it online is quicker. It can get things processed faster. Some people just still prefer the paper, and they are still, for all of these forms you have here, still available to do it that way if you want to. Okay. So for doing a 470, this is where you are saying, as I said earlier, you want to receive a service. You're actually officially you're opening a competitive bidding process where service providers could contact you to say, oh, we do that service. Here's the deal. Here's our price for that. On the form, you say what you need, what you are. You're a library, and you want to get phone or internet, whatever it is that you're looking for. Most likely for libraries in Nebraska, you won't receive any bids from anybody. It is officially announced to the world that you're doing it when you submit this, and any service provider that wants to can contact you. However, for many places like here, the Commission, I don't get contacted by anybody. Windstream, who is our current provider, just contacts me and says, yes, we're still here, we're still doing it with you, we're still doing Erate, we're all good. What might happen is you'll submit this form, you'll wait your 28 days like you're supposed to let that competitive bidding process happen, and you won't hear from anybody, and you'll just go along with who your current provider has always been, and that is perfectly fine. You may, however, hear from some service provider. I've heard in some of my sessions that some libraries who've been doing this for years had never ever heard from anyone, and suddenly now they are. And they're actually hearing from providers that do not provide service in their area, which was an interesting thing. Not sure if the service providers are just getting lazy and not really checking out to see who they're submitting bids to, or they're getting desperate and just submitting a bid to anybody who asks for a service anywhere near them. I've had some libraries who have then contacted these companies and said, okay, I'm in so-and-so town, and the company replies, oh, well, we don't serve that town. Our service isn't available there. Okay, so long. We won't be working with you then, I guess. So you might get some weird bids like that. More often, you'll just go with your usual provider, but you do still have to go through this process where you post the Form 470, you announce to the world, we want to get this service, we're a library, we need our phone, we need our internet, whatever it is you want to apply for. You wait your 28 days before you do the 471. That's the official time frame. Like I said earlier, just reminding you, for February 24th is the deadline for submitting a 470 and still complying with that 28-day waiting period, because the deadline for the 471 is March 24th. So that's the latest. You don't have to wait till then. And please don't. Do it whenever you can. But that is the last day, and you can still be in that waiting period. If you do get bids, keep track of them. You do have to keep track of anyone who has contacted you and somehow document what your decision-making process was for picking one vendor over another. Price is supposed to be your primary factor, but it does not have to be your only one. You do not have to just go with the cheapest. If you know that someone is better at customer service because you have a history with them, or if you know they offer you other services in addition to your telephone or internet that is a benefit, you can have that all be reasons that go into play for making your decision. Just make sure that anything you do, keep track of it. Save any bids, same thing, that 5 years. If you just sit down and make a decision looking at the bids, you need to somehow write yourself a memo. Let it, just so you know for future, if anyone contacts you from SLD, this is why we picked this company over that one. What some libraries do, which is a good idea, is send themselves an email, because then you have it officially dated and timed when you actually made this decision, that it was during that 28-day period after you did the 470, before you did the 471. It's all official, that you have a record for yourself saying, here's why this one got picked over that one. Oh, I have a question here. I received one this year. Oh, Wanda, you mean you received a bid this year, but you don't want to choose it? Is that what you're saying? Yes, okay, so you've gotten a bid from someone else, but you'd rather either stick with the one you want, or the one you've always gone with, or go with a different one. Yes, you don't have to do anything to respond to the bids if you don't want to. You just respond to the one you want, and then they'll know. Depending on what the wording is in these bids that you receive, they may say, please contact us at this email address or this phone number to let us know. Then yeah, let them know that we've decided to go with someone else. But you still have to hold on to them. But you don't have to do anything unless you want to change. If you want to stick with your current provider, you just need to let them know we're sticking with you. We're all good. You do not have to respond to the bids. You just have to make sure you made a decision and you documented why you made your decision. Oh, okay. There's a previous question going back to something earlier about finding the discount matrix. Okay, well, the links are earlier in the presentation, and there'll be a URL later on. Well, I'll show you again where you can get those numbers from the high school, that are for the school, for their school lunch program. Oh, that's a good suggestion. The person has a suggestion about, can you put your choice in the minutes of your board meeting if it falls within the time frame? Yeah, if this was discussed at a board meeting and your board members were part of the decision making, then that would actually be your official record of how the decision was made. Absolutely, that would definitely count and be useful. Just make sure, and you probably do hold on to those board meeting minutes anyways, but just make sure that you have those for 5 years. And what you might do, if that particular board meeting and you file those minutes somewhere in particular, make another copy of it and file it with your E-rate stuff as well. If you have a file that's your E-rate forms and your E-rate that you're doing for each year, make a copy of those board meeting minutes and put it also in that file, so you have it all together with all of your E-rate related things as well. That's definitely a good suggestion. So the first, I've got a screenshot here of when you first go into creating a new 470. And you start off putting in either your zip code or your entity number. Every institution who does E-rate is assigned a billed entity number. If you've done it in the past, you have one that you'll just enter in there. If you've never done it, you might have one anyways. I know I've seen some libraries who say, oh, I know we've never ever done it, but they've already got one anyhow. You can look up that entity number on the SLD website. They've got a search for that, and you can find yours. Or you can just put in your zip code, and it'll bring up anybody who is a institution in your zip code area, and then you'll be able to choose yourself from that list. So billed entity number is what you would either have there or your zip code. And then this is the first page of the form that I've given a screenshot here where I filled out some things that I wanted to point out to you, some of the new things that are on the form this year. Some of the forms are a little cleaned up. A lot of the things they did as far as changes to the 470 and the 471 was deleting questions that people didn't use, or questions that were asked elsewhere. There's a lot of duplication. Some of it was just cleaning up as far as how it looks, as far as, removing blank lines and cleaning up the boxes and pages. So some of it will be more subtle cosmetic things like that. But there are some certain things I do want to point out to you that are new or different on these forms, so you make sure you're aware of what they are. First thing here is basic information. You as the applicant, what funding year you're applying for. Now this is the information on these forms is training information, so it's not a real library or anything. So this name of applicant would actually be your library's name, not applicant. That's just my demo here. But the two questions here, 5A and 5B, are new. What type of applicant you are and who is the recipient of your services. For you guys, it's going to be library. You're not a school district, you're not an individual school, we're not doing how many consortiums, and we're not doing a statewide application for anybody, but that's new. And the recipient of services, way down at the bottom here, most of you, your public libraries, that'd be who you would be checking. If you're a tribal library, here for me at the commission, I checked both public and state agency, because we are a state of Nebraska agency. So those are two new options that are pretty self-explanatory, but I just want to make sure you're aware of those are new things on the form. Also on the bottom part of that same form, this is the lower part of that same first page, they are asking for email address, and they have you enter it twice now, which is just a check to make sure that you've typed it correctly. This is also where you would choose your preferred mode of contact from them. This would be if their reviewers feel they need to contact you for more information, for clarification. This is how you tell them how you want them to reach you. You can choose either phone, they can call you on the phone, they can send you a fax, or send it through email. That's your choice. But the new thing is entering it twice. And there's also something else new here about consultants. And this you will see repeated in many locations on both the 470 and the 471 when you get to that one. They're going to ask you for consultant info. A registration number, their name, address, whatever. Most likely you don't have one. Consultants there are companies, organizations, businesses out there that will do your E-rate submitting for you for a fee. Excuse me. You pay them to do it for you. Those would be consultants. They are all assigned registration numbers by the USAC. So they have you have a billed entity number that's specific to your library. They have a consultant registration number so that they can be tracked with all the work that they do. You'd only fill this in here if you've actually used a paid consultant to help you do your form and they are submitting it for you. So you'll see a lot of places where it asks for this. Did you have a consultant? Check this box, enter their info. You just skip all that if you haven't used one. Leave it blank. That is perfectly fine. Okay, I've got a new question here. Tammy at Bridgeport says, Bridgeport Head Start comes to the library once a week, and you also have people who fill unemployment, and you're an HHS outlet for filling out those forms. I'm not sure if that would qualify for state agency. Definitely Head Start. This information here, it does not have anything to do, it doesn't point to how much money you'll get or what you'll get the money for. It's just them keeping statistics on who is benefiting from use of this. Well, if you're designated, I guess, as a Health and Human Services, like officially somehow, not just they come in. I mean, I would say sure you can do Head Start and state agency in addition to being a public library. So definitely, and that's what's good about that 5B. You just click as many of them as apply for who comes in and uses the services that you're asking for an E-rate discount on. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Anything more you need to know about that? Basically, the answer is yeah. You're welcome. Okay, so after you fill out this basic information, the next thing you're going to be given, and this is also default information, of course. Yes, if you do not have consultant information, if you don't have a consultant, yes, you leave that blank and it's fine. You don't have to put anything in that box. You can go on with it blank. Anything that you do have to complete, once you try and go on to the next page, you see you have a next button here, it will give you a warning saying you must put something in this box, you must put something in that box if you've missed something. So it will let you know. But no, consultant information, they know not everybody uses one, so blank is fine and it will let you go on with the rest of the form. After you do that first page, you will then be assigned, your form will be given an application number. Now this is just a default one. You need to note that down, and this is what you will use to go back into the form if you do need to continue with an incomplete one, if you got interrupted, if you had to look up more information, whatever. This is something you'd need to have. Either write it down or just hit print and print out that screen, and then you'll have that you can use to get back into the form later. So very important to do that. Something new once you get to your certifications. After you fill out the basic information on the form, the last thing you do is your certification. Certification is like an extra bit where you're officially signing the form and saying, I agree to all the legal stuff. There's a whole bunch of checks on this one. This is the first page of it, but there's a lower section below this as well that I did not do. I didn't do a screenshot of the entire thing. It goes down to like I think 20, 21 different checks that you do. Basically just I agree that I'm following all the rules. I agree that I went through the right processes, that I am the appropriate person that can fill out this form, the basics. The first one here, 16, that's where you say whether you're a school or a library. Obviously, you guys would choose the second one, library. 17, this is something that's new where they've added that you can certify that no technology plan is required because you're not applying for discount on those items that don't require the plan, those priority 1 items. This is new because of the change in that the whole priority 1, you don't have to have one. So unless you're applying for priority 2, you would check, I certify that no plan is required. Now, the certification, you check off all of these, and this is the second part in submitting the 470. And depending on how you've done it before, this is a point where you may have to mail something in even though you're submitting the form itself online. The form 470, you could hit submit, and then it will say, okay, now we're going to have you certify it. There is electronic signatures that you can do, a PIN number that can be assigned to you so that you can do everything online. However, the very first time you do any form, you do need to send them an actual in-paper through the mail certification. This is so that they have your wet signature, they call it, where you've actually signed the piece of paper. Once they get that from you just one time, they will mail you back through the mail, the U.S. mail, a little rectangular piece of paper with your personal PIN number for you as a person submitting forms on behalf of your library. From then on, you can do everything online, both doing the forms and the certifications for the forms. You just type in this code number instead of signing and mailing in the certification part of it. So at the end of this, when you see that says certification and signature, if you've ever done it before, you have one of these PIN numbers. You just keep using it. PIN number is specific to an individual working at the library, not to the library itself. So if someone else previously did this, you can't use their PIN number. Like if your previous director or previous staff person, you'd have to do it for yourself once, mail it in, get your own PIN that you can use. That billed entity number that you've used, that's specific to the library, and that one you just use the same one from the first time you ever did E-rate. That's always going to be the same, even if your staff at the library changes. So the certification is the last part of submitting the form. You would either electronically do it by typing in your PIN if you already have one, or in paper do it by printing it out. It gives you the address to mail it to. You just stick that one certification page in the mail to them, and you'll get your PIN number sent to you for all future use and submitting of forms. Any questions? And here's the slide about it. This is just slides about some terms that we've been using. Just to remind you, the billed entity number, that's the number assigned to your school. Like I said, if you've never done it before, there is a search on the website where you can search for entity numbers and see if your library may have one. Otherwise, you can call the SLD and they will assign you one. It's pretty quick. They'll give it to you within just a few minutes, and then you'll be good to go just to fill out your form. But go on their website first, on their website, and search to see if you might have one. I've been surprised by some libraries who thought it had never been done, and they had one anyways for some reason. And then the PIN number, that's what I was just describing, is assigned to you. That everyone, whenever you submit a 470, 471, or 46, you always do a certification of it. That's your official signature. The first form you ever do as an individual, and it can be in any step in the process. For example, if you take over working at a library and the next form they need to fill out to submit is actually the 46, that's the one that you can send in a print certification and get your PIN for then all future use. So it just depends on where you happen to start working at the library and have it, well, when you had to start doing this, when you can get your PIN. After you send in your 470, you get your receipt notification letter where they send back to you summarizing what you entered in it. Double check this letter and make sure it's correct. This is where they're saying this is what we think you entered, what you submitted. Compare it to what you entered, make sure it's correct. You can make changes to some of the information using this letter, and it will tell you on the letter what things you can change or not. If there's things that you can't change that are incorrect, you can submit a brand new 470 and just use that new one instead of this old one that has incorrect information. Just got to make sure you do it within that 28, so that you have those 28 days before you do your 471. And that's what that second term there, that allowable vendor selection or contract date, is that 28 days. And that is indicated on that receipt notification letter you get for submitting your 470 will tell you what that date actually is. That's the first date that you're allowed to submit your 471, the second form in the process. So the competitive bidding process that we're talking about, comes from the 470. As I said, the bidders have that information. Make sure that you've done a fair process. Everyone asks you for information. Every vendor contacting you possibly has all the same access to the same info. Don't accept gifts from a vendor to get for that, and then give them your business. That kind of thing. Anything that could be construed as wrong. Just make sure that it's a fair process that we'll go through, and that you do your evaluation. RFP's request for price is optional. Some local institutions do require it. Your city might, but that's a local. You do not have to have one. You'll see on the form it does say, are you going to be submitting one? And you just say no. If you don't need to. The 470 serves that same purpose, that everyone knows what you're looking for. And this is what I went into earlier about the most cost-effective bid. Just make sure that cost is your primary factor, but anything else that you can take other things into consideration to make your decision. After you've gone through those 28 days, that's when, after those 20 days have passed, that's when you can choose you're going to have your service provider and do your Form 471, the second step in the process. I have a question here from, I filled out my Form 470 that posted internet is not. Okay, you said you filled out your 470 in the fall, and you see that now it only refers to telecommunications, but internet access is not on there. Internet would only be eligible to get a discount on if you had selected internet access as something you wanted to get as a separate item that you wanted to get a discount on. Now, your phone company, you say, does both phone and internet, and that may be true, but you have to apply for a discount on the service, not a discount from the company. If you understand the difference there, you have to apply, I want a discount on my phone, and I also want a discount on my internet. We would have to have marked that you wanted to do both of those on your 470. If you didn't do that or you're not sure, you can submit a new 470 just for the internet access so that you can apply to get a discount on that as well. Maybe give me a call later, Deb, and I can talk you through that and see what your form actually says, what your letter, I assume since you did the 470 in the fall, you've already received your receipt letter. We can work through what you submitted to them and see if we need to do a new 470 just for the internet access. That can be done. You can have multiple 470s out there, and then when you do your 471, the second form, you just refer to the appropriate 470 as your original form that you submitted when you're doing the 471. Cool. We'll talk about that. If you need to, yes, give me a call. Okay, so that's the 470, your first step in the process. After you do that, like it says here, you wait your 28 days, then you can do your 471, letting them know who you chose and what your service is going to be. And this is what I'm going to go into now as well, because right now some libraries, as they've said, have already done their 470, and now they're on the stage of doing their 471 in the process. This is where you tell them who you've chosen. You actually put your discount calculation where you use those school lunch numbers, and your urban or rural status goes right on this form so they know how you calculated your discount, how you figured it out. Also certifying with the program rules, everything that they say you must do. As we said, wait the 28 days. And there's once again a reminder of the application filing window for the 471 opened on January 11th, so you have until March 24th to submit it. Any certifications for the 470, because you can submit your form and your certification separately. Obviously, if you're doing them online, the form online, the certification in paper, there's going to be a different date when each were done. Just have to make sure all your certifications for that first form, the 470, are also filed or at least postmarked if you have to do it in paper before that March 24th deadline of the 471 filing window. Now if you miss this window, there is the possibility of being able to do things outside of the window, as they phrase it. However, that might cause problems, might cause delays. It's not a good idea to do that because you may have issues. Always good just to try and pay attention to when the window is, do it during the right time, and then you're all good. But if for some reason there's extenuating circumstances and you end up having to do it outside, it can be done. They will eventually look at the forms. It will just be delayed because you didn't get it in by the deadline. Always good just to keep up on things and do it during the timing. We do try and announce these things. The SLD announces them on their website. We have mailing lists that you can sign up for that keep track of these things, so does the SLD. So there's various ways that you can get this information too to keep up with it. I'll be sending it out to our mailing list that we have for the commission as well, like I did it for this year. So just try and keep aware of this. Now, don't forget also, timing this year is different from pretty much every other year. Normally, this window would be a November through January, February kind of time frame. So for next year, it's going to be all earlier than what we're doing this year. So for you new people, be aware of that next year all of this will probably start in November. Now here's the 471, the second form in the process. Some new things on this form as well. Same thing as there was in the 470, the type of application, that you're a library, and the recipient of your service. They have those same first two new items. But there's also something else new right here at the top, an FCC registration number. This is something that you have not had to enter before, but you do have one. And I'll show you in a couple of slides where you can get that. So this is something that it will require you to enter. Anyone who does business with FCC has this registration, is assigned one of these registration numbers. And if you've ever done E-rate before, you actually were assigned one, whether you know it or not, because you did business quote-unquote did business with the FCC. You just may never have used it for anything. And I've got a URL where you can look that up, either to see if you have one or to request one if you've never done anything with them before. Second page, lower half of the first page of the 471, same thing as the 470, just want to let you know the same thing. The email address you enter twice, and there's also, there it is again, that consultant information request. Same thing here. You didn't use a consultant, you just leave it all blank and it's fine, but you will just see a lot of references on both of these forms now to consultants. And did you use one? And I'm certifying that I did or didn't use one. Just that's going to be something new now that's popping up on all of these forms. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. That's something I've been getting a lot of questions on. Now that FCC registration number, this is now where I've got the link you can go to. As I said, anyone who ever does business with them is assigned one. And it goes on that 471. It's brand new on there. You never had to do it before. But they do have, the FCC has a website that you can go to. It's a very weird website to type in there, but you can also go to just fcc.gov, and there's a menu on the left that has a registration number lookup if you want to do it easier, or you can use this URL, which brings you right to a page where you can either you can search to see if you have one and what it is, or if nothing comes up, you can request one be assigned to you that you need a number. That same link will get you, will do both of those things for you. So that's something new that has been confusing people as well. Now, for the Form 471, as I said, just like the 470, you can stop if you have to and complete things later if you need to get more information for whatever reason. After you do that first page, what you're going to get is this message that will come up, and you can see it's red, it's important. You need 471. It also is given an application number is assigned to it just like the 470, but it is also assigned a security code number and a second code number that you need as well. You need both of those numbers, the application number and the security code number, to be able to log in again to this particular application and continue with it if you do have to stop in the middle and go back later. So this would also be a page, once you see this come up, it'll only show it to you once, that you will either write down these numbers or just hit print and print out that screen. So that you have both of those that you can go log in again and finish it. If you don't get that security code number, you're going to have to call SLD and see if they can help you. They usually can't give that out. They don't have a way to look that up. You just have to start a new 471, which isn't horrible. It's just annoying that you already started something and you had to go back and do something, do it again. So 470. The first form, you get one that just gives you application number. That gets you back in to complete later. 471, you get two numbers, an application number and a security code. You need both of those to get back into your 471 to continue it later. So that's just some of the basic new things on the 471. Most of it is the same things that you did before, where you enter information about who you've chosen, how much it costs, your calculation that you would have done earlier to figure out your discount. That's all the information that you fill out on the 471. After you submit this one, then they receive it. They will then mail you, and this year on blue paper, don't forget the color coding, a receipt acknowledgement letter. Same thing as the first one. It is showing you everything that they think you entered. Double check it. Look it over, make sure that it's all correct. If it's not, you can make some changes to it, and it will give you instructions on how to where to go to make changes and how to submit them to the SLD so that you can fix any errors that might be on the form or on the letter to make sure that it's accurate. After this is done, this is when you wait. You wait to see if they are going to approve your funding and you're going to get the money. If they do decide to fund you, well, no matter what, you'll get a funding commitment decision letter that tells you whether you have or have not been funded and for how much. This is the one that can take time. They're going through the review of your application, the PIA review. You'll get this letter that tells you what you're getting funded. You may receive more than one. If you've applied for multiple things, for both telephone, local, long distance, and internet access, they might decide them at different times and send you more than one funding commitment decision letter. So make sure you've got them that match up with everything you did in your 470, 471, that you've got forms for all of them before you work on that next step, the 486. Keep your eyes open in the mail. This will come on that blue paper for the next year. You can appeal if you want to, and if necessary, that can be done if you think they didn't give you enough, or if they denied it, you can ask why, and you can argue if you want to based on that. So when you do a 471, every request you submit has a funding request number that is automatically assigned to it by the system. This is not something that you pick. The system assigns it. So you'll have a funding request number for your phone request, a funding request number, a separate one for your long distance, a third funding request number for your internet, and all of those will be the ones that you refer to in later. So each funding request gets assigned its own number by the system. When you're choosing your service provider on the 471, like you have a billed entity number, they have a service provider ID number, a SPIN number. If you've used a provider before, you can look it up when you're doing the form and it will show you the provider's number. You may see more than one SPIN number for a provider. They may have different ones for different services they offer. If you do end up with looking up your provider and finding more than one, contact them and ask them which one you're supposed to use. They will know which one is for the particular service that you're trying to use to get a discount on. You want to make sure you use the right one so that it can go through the right processes for billing and everything. Also, when you do your 471, you have something called an Item 21 attachment, which is a description of the service that you're getting. We are getting internet access at this speed. We are getting 5 phone lines into our building, 7 phone lines into 2 rooms in the building. Just a written description of it, and the form will prompt you right through to do that Item 21 attachment. It's just an extra bit that you attach to that 471 describing exactly what your request is for. And so that's where you specify exactly what you're wanting to get a discount on. After you do the 471, you get that receipt acknowledgement letter, and that's the one that can have corrections done, as I mentioned earlier. And some of these things you'll see they have acronyms. You'll hear either me or other people talk about. I try not to talk about them by the acronyms because there's so many. You know, this is a RAL letter, R-A-L. The RNL is a previous one. The funding request number, the previous screen there. Some people pronounce this a FERN, F-R-N. I find it easier just to say it because they are all spelled out on the forms as well. So, but all these acronyms are good just to have this as a reference in case someone does send you an email. Sometimes you might get something from the SLD or from a provider that uses one of these acronyms. So it's always good to kind of have this as a reference so you know what the heck they're talking about. When they are reviewing your 471, doing that review, they see if you're eligible, check out your services. This is where they may contact you to find out if they need more information before they decide to fund it or not. Like I said, you can do an appeal. If you don't like what they've said in the funding commitment decision letter, if you find that it's not accurate, or you want to just, for something they've denied, completely argue it, you can do an appeal. There'll be information on the letter that tells you how you can do that. And there's also a link on their website, a page on the SLD website that tells you the process and how to go through that if you have to. I don't know if many places that have done this, just in my own knowledge, but it is a process. They want to give you the money. That's what's great about this program. The whole purpose of it is to give away this money. There are people that are keeping an eye on them and trying to make sure money is getting where it's supposed to, that the government has. And so if you have a question, you want to try and fight it, and you've got the time, go ahead. They may just realize it was a technical error or a managerial error or something. You mistyped some number somewhere, and you end up getting it granted in the end. So if you've got concerns or issues with it, go ahead and follow through and see if maybe you can get them to give you the money that they originally said no for. Like I said, PIA is that Program Integrity Assurance group that will review it. That's who may contact you if they want more information. You'll get things that say we're contacting you from PIA. And that would be after they've gone through their process with you is when you'd get that funding commitment decision letter letting you know. So that is the information about the first two forms, the ones you'll be applying and submitting right now. Any questions about those two processes? Now, it seems like a lot of confusing information, and it can be. What's great about all of these forms, the instruction, is that on the online ones, they prompt you through everything. You can't really forget to do a certification because it says here's the next thing you got to do is do your certification. You can't forget to do an item 21 attachment explaining what your services you're requesting because it prompts you to do that next. It's really great about that. And even the online forms, those instructions are very detailed. The instructions that you may print out can be 2-3 times as long as the form itself. So there's a lot of detail in those print instructions about the form. So I definitely recommend using them to help you figure out submitting any of these forms. Okay, no questions? I'm just going to quickly go through the last two steps of the process because right now, for the upcoming year, you're not at this yet. If you've done it previously, you have done these. After you've gotten your commitment letter, your funding decision commitment letter, you do your 46, where you say that you've started your services. If you had a technology plan, you say that I approved it. I would be the one that did that. If you needed to comply with SIPA, if you're doing internet, you'd check that you have complied with that. This is just letting them know not only do we ask for the service, we picked our service provider, now we actually have started the service, so everything went to plan. Sometimes for some reason things might not, and you don't submit the 46 because if the deal fell through with a provider or for some reason your library closed or you realize we can't afford internet anymore, things like that could happen and you don't do these and this step, and that's fine, the process just ends. But you would definitely need to do this if you are receiving the service and do want to get your discount. Like I said, you get 120 days to do this, so there's a pretty good chunk of time that you have to be able to get this submitted. October 29th is the deadline if your service officially started July 1st. Which lots of vendors try and do their service period at the same funding year that Erate uses so that it all matches up easily for submitting forms and budgets and whatnot. So that would be the ultimate deadline for people. Or if your funding commitment decision letter came after July 1st, if there's a delay in them reviewing it, then your 128 days would be later than October 29th. And that date would be listed on that funding commitment decision letter. It will tell you on that letter when your deadline is for submitting the next form, the 46. That's what's great. All these letters they send you, they tell you when your next step is. They'll tell you the deadline for the next one is going to be this. The deadline for the next one will be that. Your 28 days is this long. So those letters have very good, useful information, those colored pieces of paper they're sending you. After you submit your 46, you get a notification letter back from them about that one, letting you know that it has been processed and they've received it. Same thing, take a look at it, make sure it's all correct. After you've received that notification letter, then you are able to decide about how you're going to do your invoicing. Either your bear or your spy. As someone asked earlier, is that what's called a bear? Yes. You have two choices, and as I said, depending on which one you choose, you will either be submitting this form or your service provider will be. Depends on which way you want to go. If you want to receive the reimbursement after you've paid your bill, meaning you pay your bills in full for the year and then get a check back, that would be the BEAR, the Billed Entity Applicant Reimbursement. That's what you submit. If you want to receive the discount on your monthly bills, meaning each month you get a bill that is already discounted, your service provider submits their SPY form, which is the 474. Before you just submit either one of your form or do this, you have a discussion with your service provider. Contact them, or they might contact you. For me, Windstream actually just contacted me. They contact me proactively and say, please check here which one you prefer, and we'll do that. But it depends. Your provider may not contact you at all, but you just need to get in touch with them and make sure that you both agree which way you want to do it. There is a deadlines for this as well. 120 days after the last service date, June 30th, is how long you have to submit a BEAR form, or 120 days after the date of the Form 486 notification letter that you received for submitting your Form 486. So there is a deadline to get these invoice forms in as well, and if you don't meet the deadline, you don't get your discount. This is also something else that I do pay attention to, and I can look up and see who has submitted theirs or not, and I've contacted libraries and reminded them to get this in, otherwise you're not getting your discount, you're not getting your money that you went through all that work for. So if I notice this, I'll be contacting you. Like I said, the service provider one, that would be if you want the discount right on your bill, they would submit that one and keep track of that for themselves. Okay. If you do that Bayer form where you want the reimbursement, you'll get a letter notifying you that they have received your Bayer request. Both you and your service provider get that, so that you both know that it's been processed through. And then this is that report that I mentioned earlier that does not come on the colored paper for whatever reason, the quarterly disbursement report. That's your quarterly report, whether you've done either the reimbursement or the discounted bill, either one. You'll get that every quarter, letting you know what has happened, what has been done as far as billing. If you can, double check that make sure you've gotten the right numbers, the right amounts, that the service provider has discounted your bills correctly. If you're doing the SPI where the provider is just giving you a discounted bill, when you get this report, compare it to your actual bills you've gotten from the provider and make sure they're giving you the right discount. This report will tell you what they should have discounted you, because that's the amount of money that the SLD is actually giving that provider. So keep up on them, double check, and make sure that this is it is accurate. Okay, so I have a question on here. It says in block 3, where do I list our DSL service? I'm not sure which form are you talking about here, the 470 that you want to, 471. Okay, there is no longer a block 3 on the 471 form. They've actually taken out that section, those questions that were in there. What you do is actually block 5 is where you put in the different funding requests that you're doing. Your DSL service would be under internet access in priority 1, and that's when you specify out what the service is that you're getting. If you look at the forms, you'll actually see that it now says block 3 reserved in brackets. There used to be questions in there and things that they asked, but to keep the blocks and the form, the numbering correct, they just left it blank now. So we're actually, what you're thinking about, I think, is block 5, where you put in the actual specific funding requests for each service. And then also in your item 21 attachment that goes on it, that's part of that as well. If you're not sure about that, you can give me a call and I can, walk you through it if you need. So that's the last 2 steps of the process, the 46 and then the either 472 or 474. Those are ones you'll be doing later in the year. Right now what you're working on is either your 470 or 471, depending on where you are in the process. So any questions? You've been asking questions throughout the session, which is great. If you do need help, obviously you can contact me. That's, as I said, that's what I'm here for. I am your state E-rate coordinator. But you can also contact the School and Libraries Division's own client, what they call their Client Service Bureau. That's their customer support for this. They have an 800 number that you can call, or you can also submit an online form. This is their email request. They've got a form on their website that you can just send them an email question. They don't have an email address that you can send things to. You go online and fill out this form, and then they respond to you via email, and then you'll start your email correspondence with them if you need to. But definitely feel free to call them. They are very helpful. This is what they do. They've got people assigned to this. They've got specific reviewers assigned to each library's applications. If you can't get in touch with me for something, feel free to call them instead. If I'm out, if I'm teaching a class, whatever. Sometimes I'll end up having to refer you to them. There are certain things that I can't even look up or find out for you, and they may be the best choice to go to anyways. And also, as I said earlier, anything on their website you can go to and search and use their resources. They've got tons of searches and resources, and this is some of the things they do have on their site that I wanted to point you to. They have something called their news briefs, Schools and Libraries News Briefs. It's a weekly email that you can sign up for that they send you what's happening this week, what you need to pay attention to, what deadlines coming up. They're all available on their website as well, so you can go back and look at all the archived ones. I sign up for it and I follow them all. And it's helped me keep up on what's coming up next. They also have some tip sheets, some PDF handouts that'll help you do certain processes. Not every single process, but some of them they have tip sheets that can help you go through the steps. And there's also a nice thing, a process flow chart, which is nice. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it is, and I've linked to that on the session page for this class today, that it shows not just what processes you go through, but also what your service provider may be doing. Let's see here. So it's good just to see, I submit this form, then I get this letter, then I submit this form, and then but you can also see that you're not the only one going through this. Your service provider has to submit forms to keep up with it every year as well. So it's similar to that timeline I showed you, but with both you and the service provider's information. Oops. And like I said, you can always contact me. That's what I'm here for. I am your E-rate coordinator for the state. This URL is the website I have set up for on the commission page. On the commission website that has information and help guides for it. And actually what I'll do, I'm going to pop over there and show that to you so you can see some of the links that we do have out there. You can also always call me or email me for anything. I'm going to switch over to here. Oops. Okay, so what you should be seeing now is our there we go. E-rate discounts pay website. This is on our commission page, and that's the link that was on that final slide that I gave you there, where this is a link to that news briefs, news updates that the USAC has on their own website. You can go over here to the news briefs and see them and sign up to subscribe to it and get these emails sent to you weekly. And here you've got all the historical ones. They've got them by topic or by date, so you can just see the most recent ones if you want to. Timeline that I had in the PowerPoint presentation, like I said, that was specific to this upcoming funding year, but this is my general timeline of just when things usually happen. As you can see, we have usually things start in October, November. So this will help you follow through that, and this is what can be used for any future year. The one in the PowerPoint, like I said, is specific to the funding year that we're coming up to. And then I've got links to the specific forms where you can find them online, that same link that I showed you the screenshot of. So you can go there to do it. And the link to the required forms page that I pointed out where you can get the paper forms and the instructions. There it goes. And you can see here you've got PDF of 470, download the form itself and the instructions, form and instructions for the 471. 486, form and instructions for those. There's other forms here that do not apply to you necessarily, or for the service provider or for other purposes. Your bear form, if you do decide to do the reimbursement, that's here as well in print. And then below that you see the service providers have their own forms that they have to do. When we were talking about that calculating your discount, this is where I have a link to the URL I gave you in the PowerPoint, but I have a link here to the free and reduced lunch counts from the Department of Education. This is the Department of Education website where they have lots of different reports on it. And if you scroll down to the second section, you have your Excel spreadsheet for your lunch counts for each year. And that most recent one there, the 2010 through 2011, that is the one that we'd use for the year that you're submitting for right now. Whether you're urban or rural, that's the other number that goes into consideration. They've got that on the SLD website as well, where you can just look for our state, Nebraska, and then it will tell you all these counties that are listed here are considered rural, which is pretty much almost every county in the state. So you can find that on their website. And then you use those two numbers in the discount matrix, which is also in your PowerPoint presentation, but is also here on the SLD website. A lot of things you'll find in multiple places to help you figure it out. That eligible services list, this is where you want to look at the links in your PowerPoint to see what you can get E-rate on. And here is the 2011, that's the current one you'd want to use for the upcoming year that you're applying for, and then there are the two previous lists if you wanted to maybe see what used to be, or if you're still working on maybe one of the previous ones, negotiating with them. The 2010 and 2009 list are on here. Like I said, things are added and deleted and changed every year, so you want to make sure you use the right list and all the wording from that one when you're filling out your forms. Something else that you might want to sign up for, like I said, there is that news briefs that comes weekly from the SLD. We also have a Nebraska E-rate mailing list, which is hosted by the Library Commission here, and it is for both schools and libraries in the state. So you will see, if you sign up for this, you'll get randomly sent messages when anybody posts something notifying libraries or schools about something going on with E-rate. Usually in the past, mostly the schools have posted to it, but now that I'm more involved with E-rate and I have more of my job is dedicated to this, I might be posting more things as well. This is where you'll see notifications about the window is opened. These are libraries in Nebraska who have not submitted either Form 486 or this form or that form, those kind of notifications. So it's a good place to go to be signed up for. It is not a very busy listserv. If you're worried about being buried in emails, it's not kind of a discussion list type thing. It's more of an announcements list. So you get something maybe a couple of times a month from it. But you can go right there and sign up for that. Definitely a good resource for more information. Okay, any questions about the website or the forms? I'm going to pop back over to here so you have my contact information. I do have one question I see here. I never use the interview form for 470. How is that different from the regular 470? The form itself that you submit, whether you do an interview or just choosing the button that says create, the form itself in the end that is submitted is exactly the same. It's just how they guide you through answering the questions is what's different. It collects the same info, it provides the same info to the SLD. It's just the interview asks you more in a question and answer type way rather than just what I showed you in screenshots of just here's all your blank boxes, type in the information. So it's just a different way of submitting it. What you can do is go through it one way if you want to, look at it in the interview version, and if it's not something you're comfortable with, just close out of it and go start over again in the regular way and submit that one instead. Until you get to the point where you've submitted the form, you haven't actually sent anything to the SLD, so you can go through and look at them and see how they look and compare and decide which one might be easier for you to do. I know some people in my trainings have just said they like the feel of it better, they like the guiding of it, and some people are more comfortable with the traditional, just complete the form. So it's up to you which way you want to go, but the same information is asked for and the same information is submitted no matter which one you use. So any other questions about E-rate? We're officially over a little bit from our time, but we did start a little late waiting for some people to get in. So any other questions you have right now about anything that I've gone through, feel free to type them in. This is a lot of information, I do know. I understand that. There's a lot to do with submitting E-rate, but I'm hoping that this will help you understand a little bit of the process and go through it. All of the links that are on here, as you see, are on our website that you have access to. The PowerPoint presentation you have, all of these things can help you go through the process. So any other questions you have right now? This is the end of my bit of the presentation. Anything you can think of you want to ask me right here. If not, you can feel free to contact me, phone, email, however you want to, and I can help you complete any of the forms. I can walk you through doing any of them. I can find out answers for you if you need help with doing your calculations or anything. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help. So I don't see anybody typing in any new questions. So I'm going to assume you don't have anything you can think of to ask me right now. And that's fine. Thank you. You're welcome, Beth. I hope this was helpful. Like I said, it is a pretty complex topic, but I'm hoping this recording you'll be able to go back and read it. It is recorded, so this will be ready maybe tomorrow. It's got to process through, and then you'll be able to go back and listen to it again. You can fast forward through it to go to sections that you want to. And like I said, you've got the PowerPoint. That'll be up there as well. Use the website. Use the resources that are out there. Go to the SLD website. They've got tons of information for you and help guides on there as well. So feel free to use that. So if there's nothing else, good luck. Go out, get your money. Yep, you may be contacting me, Barbie. Great, that's no problem at all. When you start working on your forms, if you're in the middle of something, yes, definitely give me a call, and as long as I'm here, I can help you get through it. What's good about these forms, as you saw, if I'm not available, that's okay. They save your progress. You can always go back to them and continue with them later. You're welcome. Yep, the PowerPoint, I did email it to you. It will also be posted up on the website when we put up the recording as well. So if that emailed version of it wasn't able you weren't able to get, you'll be able to get it off the website as well later. So, like I said, thank you very much for attending. Go out and start working on it. Get your money, get your discounts. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.